but some things I think we can be really proud of. Some of the work that Alex and the rest of the team have done was with our rider roster, supported riders is 60% women. It's 13% is people from diverse backgrounds, and we've got a target to get that to 20% in the next 2 years. So it's still progress we want to make, but I think there's actually some things we should be really, really, really pleased about.
Movement. Branding for the bike industry. Together with thought leaders of our industry and branding specialists, we're discussing the art of emotional brand building. In this episode, I'm joined by Peter Marchment, co-founder of Hunt Wheels, and Alex Bethge, head of European marketing at Hunt. We dive into the company's journey, from a side project in a UK garage to one of the most respected wheel brands in the market. A brand built not around racing prestige, but around one clear principle: rider-first product development. Peter explains why Hunt never chased the good, better, best formula and how that mindset turned into a global D2C success story. Alex shares how he's shaping the brand in Europe, balancing hardcore tech with storytelling, communication, and a subtle but intentional design. We talk about the meaning behind their claim, "Chase is on," the role of wheels in modern bike upgrades, and why Hunt prefers being close to the rider instead of chasing massive OEM volumes. It's a conversation about product obsession, honest marketing, and how to stay relevant in a changing industry without ever losing sight of why we ride. So without further ado, here are Peter, Alex, and me, Tim.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Movement Podcast Show. Hi, Pete. Hi, Alex. I don't know who of you would like to start, but could you please do us the favor and introduce yourself?
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Peter Marchment. I'm one of the co-founders of Hunt Bike Wheels and the sort of parent company of that, which is the Rider Firm. So I've been doing that for about 12 years now.
Yeah, I'm Alex Bethge. I'm with the Rider Firm for well over 1 year now, and I'm taking care of all the marketing activities in Europe, and living in South Germany, near to the Lake of Constance. Many people, I guess, know me in the bike industry for many years.
And Pete, so in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, you have founded Hunt Wheels, I believe, with your brother. And maybe you can tell us, what was the initial idea that you came up with a new wheel company?
Definitely happy to talk through it, because the bit that maybe not everybody knows is there was a little business before the wheel business, which was something that I started sort of initially in the spare time in the garage, which was innertubeshop.com, which was like a super basic SEO driven business, which was a bit of a side hustle, I suppose. Trying to just learn a little bit about running a business and getting started in the bike industry. At the time, my brother Tom was also working in the bike industry, so he was. I'd worked for a couple of distributors in the UK, as well as in bike shops before that. So he had a good knowledge of the landscape and had worked with quite a few big wheel brands. So he'd worked for the distributors for Reynolds Wheels, for Fulcrum 3T. So he knew that landscape quite well. And I was working on this little side hustle on the inner tubes, and that had given me just enough to kind of quit a job and move and get started doing that. And then we started working on an idea for doing something a bit bigger that would be a bit more of a suitable business that you might be able to make a living out of. And that was where we started working on Hunt. And that was taking that knowledge of a little bit of the landscape of what wheels were doing at the time and what we saw as probably a bit of a sort of failure of the good, better, best setup of doing stuff. So, a lot of the wheels at that time, this is times before disc brakes, before wider tires, before tubeless, any of that stuff had come along. And we're kind of generally, it was like, right, let's build a racing wheel that's designed for, pro road racing. And let's just then make slightly cheaper versions of that until it becomes affordable enough for most normal people to ride. And we looked at that and thought that's not really delivering the best outcome for riders, because what you're doing is you're taking features away from a more expensive product to make it affordable for people, rather than going, right, well, actually, if I'm going to make a product that's for everyday performance riding, how would I go and from the ground up go and make that product? So initially we were looking only at alloy wheels. We had small range of 4 wheel sets, which particularly included really the first proper dedicated road disc brake wheel set, because it was the very early days of that. So Shimano were all the Shimano road disc brake group sets were all non-series. There was no Dura-Ace 105, anything like that. It was all the non-series components, and it was looking at that and actually it'll come up a few times probably when telling the story, but at a really similar time, Mason Cycles, who was a good friend of Tom's and mine as well from previously working together, he was working on his first range of bikes, which were all going to be disc brake equipped, and he was looking at what OE options there were out there for that, and there wasn't really anything that he felt was going to be suitable and give the best outcome for riders. So we kind of worked together on that first disc brake wheel set as well, which was just at a simple level, what you could get was sort of weighed about 2 kilos and was, quite a high price to create something. And we were looking to buy a mountain bike 29er wheel set that's like 1,500 grams. Why can we not do something much better for a road product? So that's when we went out. We spent some time meeting up with different manufacturers for the components we wanted to use and speccing up that very first sort of road disc focus wheel, which was proved really popular. It was, a lightweight 4-season product that was super versatile and super durable, felt like a lightweight race wheel set, but that was going to deliver that in a disc brake format, which didn't really exist at the time. And we got really good reviews of that. And that gave us kind of the kickstart into getting the company going, really.
Mm-hmm. So it was basically your first OEM deal, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. But we obviously sold those out to consumers as well. But it was using that connection, that knowledge, because Dom had such a good understanding of what that bike needed to be and what the riders who were looking for that bike wanted. Especially when in the early days of disc brakes, a lot of the biggest advantage was if you were the kind of person who was riding in all kinds of weathers and all kinds of conditions, and taking that look and making a 4-season product. So it was called the 4-season disc. It still exists in the range today, sort of over 10 years later. I think it's had 3 or 4 versions now, but all sort of small iterations and improvements over that time.
And if I'm not mistaken, you guys also you weren't building everything exactly yourself. You were importing a few things, like, I don't know, the hubs or the rims, one of the two, and then put the wheels together. Is that correct?
So what we do, so all the wheel assembly for the final assembly has always been done with a couple of partners we have in Taiwan. Now we have 2 sites that we do building with, one of which is just an exclusively works for us. So that was a partnership we set up a few years ago and got that going, so that's our exclusive wheel builder there. And then we were going through with various different manufacturers for the rims and the hubs. We had a bit of a good knowledge of who had the expertise in Taiwan for doing that kind of thing. Spent some time going out there, touring those factories, seeing how they were doing it, and then taking our ideas for what we wanted the product to be and working with them and creating that. And then as we developed the business, then we were able to invest in, a full engineering team in the UK, and then start to then get those products. As we started moving into making carbon wheels, we were able to fully engineer those rims and those hubs with the suppliers to get them exactly what we wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And Alex, maybe you can tell us how you came across Hunt Wheels, and how you when did you start working for Hunt?
Yeah, so we basically started to open up our European entity in June last year, and a few months before that, I came on board basically to take over the marketing role, just to make the brand visible in Europe. I think in the UK, Hunt has a quite big footprint and is a well-known and established brand. But we had the feeling in Europe, there's quite some territory to gain. So that was basically the main reason to pick me up and challenge me with a nice, interesting task, basically.
Yeah, it was great being able to bring Alex in, because I think, we've always been, although we've been UK based, we've always been a worldwide brand in terms of sales. And then, we'll probably end up having to talk about it a little bit, but I'll try not to mention the B word too much. We had a bit of a period where Europe was a difficult area to sell into. And then after the things got settled a little bit more, we were able to really come up with a plan that we're going, right, how do we move on from shipping and supporting customers from the UK and Europe, and how do we actually sort of build a really strong base in Europe? And our philosophy is always that you've got to, it's not enough to just be physically there shipping the product. That's important, and it gets you across a few barriers for the logistics of things. But actually what's really important is to be in the marketplace and talking to people and representing the brand to people, and to real riders on the ground, because that's how you get that momentum build up and how you build that credibility there. So having someone like Alex who had such good experience in the European market with a load of other really, really important brands that have done a fantastic job, and he'd done a great job there. It was great to get Alex on board and sort of lead how we can get ourselves in front of European and particularly German consumers with our base in Dresden. So yeah, it's been really important and really, really, really effective. So it's been good.
So, and how has your brand identity and maybe also your mission for the brand developed over the years? You know, also considering that you've opened a US office, I believe, in 2020. How has that affected your view to the market, and your mission? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think if you go really back to the beginning of how we started, there's one theme that runs through everything that we've tried to do, which is we call like rider focused or purpose focused. So it's really about thinking about when we're developing a product or we're talking to a consumer about a product, talking to our riders about it, it's what are we designing it for, and how do we make every element of how we create those wheels and how we deliver them to you support that purpose. So if it's a gravel racing wheel set, we're going to look at all of those individual elements and build it out of that. Now, it's maybe quite a simple thing to say and probably even a bit cliched to think about it that way, but it's all about in use, the final in use of the product with the rider, making that as optimized as possible for the best experience, rather than necessarily how it looks when we're presenting on the website or how it might appear in a retail or how it fits into a rider range. The real priority has to be the single purpose and single use of that wheel. And in the UK, we obviously have a particular viewpoint. There's particular experiences you have with our type of terrain, types of riding people do, and some of that's really beneficial. It helps you focus on some of that, durability that comes from trying to having to use a product in maybe not the nicest of conditions, maybe not the best of roads, and some poor weather. But it's really interesting to then expand into different areas of the world and have our people on the ground there, and bring people into the business who have a really good knowledge of those different types of riding. So obviously in the US, we're in Boulder, so it's a big center for gravel riding, as well as obviously road riding from an American point of view. But you're really close to some of those big that big gravel scene. We spend a lot of time at SBT Gravel every year, been part of that event for quite a number of years as an exhibitor and a supporter there. And you really get that understanding of maybe that racing scene and how that requirements of those are. So if you look at how our gravel range has evolved over time, we've gone from originally stuff that was probably designed mainly around what UK gravel might have been, which often involves riding on horse tracks and horrible stuff like that.
And muddy ground,
not very
muddy
quick.
surfaces.
Yeah, a lot of muddy ground and stuff like that. So there's a lot of focus on that. Whereas when you're looking at that American gravel scene, it's much more about lightness, speed. Comfort is a factor of it as well. But looking at all of those things, we've managed to develop more aerodynamic, lighter, race-focused products for that scene. And then we have similar experiences. Then now we've got people on the ground in Europe looking at what the riding requirements are. So that range is constantly developing and listening to from the people we have on the ground in a particular location, but also the feedback we're getting from our riders through our customer service team, because we're getting thousands of emails every week and live chats every week from customers talking through and asking us for what they need from the products, and trying to listen to that and make sure we take all of that in is really important.
Mm-hmm. And from which country inspired the mountain bike wheel range?
So a lot of that's come from the US from UK as well. I mean, we've got a lot of our sponsored riders are based in the UK, and we've got people like Fergus Ryan, who's been riding enduro and spent a couple of seasons in EWS as well. So obviously you've got people there. Really, that's quite a global focus there, but there's different elements of it that come from different places. So, probably the original mountain bike range, again, probably had that quite UK focused. It was all aluminium wheels, built to be super tough and give you that lifetime that you needed from them. And then we've had people who are then pushing that product at a higher and higher level of racing, and getting that info and that feedback has been really important to then bring through that next generation, especially in the carbon products, where we've put a lot of new technology into getting the sort of race performance and the durability that you want and the impact strength that you need for that kind of product.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, basically, to influence our product development with some local flavor, and also the feedback we get from athletes here on the ground, because it's quite diverse. We are a global company, so we need to make sure that we cater basically to most of the riders. We can't satisfy everybody, but at least just to refine our products and just to find out what are the needs of those riders, and then feed that directly back to our engineering team, just to build into this rider-centric focus we have for all of our products in the end.
And regarding the name, your brand's name, Hunt.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain us where that comes from. I mean, your claim, the chase is on, maybe gives us a little bit of a hint.
Yeah.
But maybe you can explain that real quick.
Yeah. So again, obviously this goes back to kind of the early days of when we were getting things going. And I think, it's a basic process, sort of thinking around what are the different elements that we're trying to represent in the brand. And, we were picking out the idea that you were searching out and seeking out all the little bits of improvements in the wheel set and how that's going to deliver an outcome for the end rider. So that was what Hunt was kind of getting at. I think, actually, as I recall, we searched through a couple of different ideas, and then Strive was one thing we were going to go for, and then you look at it and then, Canyon had a Strive bikes, we can't use that, and then you sort of pick through a little bit of things. Then we settled on Hunt, and we kind of liked it because it had a bit of it sounds a little bit like it's an English surname as well. So I think originally a lot of people thought that was our name, our actual names.
That's what I thought.
yeah, exactly. So, but it kind of worked well on a number of elements like that. But it's a funny thing with the name, because I think with the start, it can be reasonably impactful when someone first interacts with it and first sees it. But actually, the thing that really matters is what you do as a business, and that actually gives the meaning to what the name is. There's so many companies in our industry that have decades or even nearly 100 years of history. The name that they picked 100 years ago or 30, 40 years ago isn't necessarily going to be super relevant in the future.
I was just curious.
Yeah, but it always matters because of what you've done over those years to build the actual meaning to it, which comes down to what you value as a business, really, and what you're trying to do.
And the chase is on basically is the tagline, which basically implicates like the never-ending pursuit for the best solution, kind of, right? But also like, of course, in a race, a competitive kind of thing. Maybe you can tell me what that means for you personally also, because of course you identify a lot with the company. Yeah. How do you translate this into your own role within the company, maybe?
I'll let Alex go on that one first.
Basically, I think nearly every cyclist is looking for the marginal gain somewhere, and just to squeeze out all the best out of yourself as a rider, as a person, and your equipment. And that's basically how I see it, so that we always try to deliver our best, and find those small little parts we can improve, and just try to build that into the product, or just find different routes and approaches to some maybe problems or stuff we see. And it's constantly evolving and trying to push us forward into the right direction. And so that is basically what.
Also, in terms of communication, like what's on your behalf?
We don't proactively really work with that claim, so it's sitting there, and I think that's part of our mission. Perhaps in subtle ways, we try to integrate this into our communication, but we want to push our technology and our innovations, but not push it too hard. Just be honest, transparent with our data, and all the claims we put out there, we can back that up with the numbers we garner in all our tests and wind tunnel trips we do and stuff like that. So it's basically, we don't want to throw a big claim out there and not be able to back it up somehow.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Alex is saying there. It's interesting that you picked up the case on, because I think it's definitely something that's like evolved in how we use it. I think in the early days, like probably our messaging, I think probably the messaging of the bike industry 10 years ago was much more like race focused, about going as fast as I can and all of that kind of stuff. And that's still an important message for quite a few people. But there's also a lot of people who engage with, even with performance cycling products, in quite a different way now. And it's much more about the experience of how you feel on the bike when you're riding that product. What you're going to go out and achieve on your bike might be, for a lot more people, much less focused on being as fast as you possibly can, but actually about where you've managed to get to, the distance you managed to cover, or the adventure you were able to have. And, for me, that's definitely how my experience of riding has evolved over time. I was never much of a racer at all. And I certainly wouldn't back myself against many other people, but, discovering a different way of enjoying bikes and enjoying products that we make, it's been really, really enjoyable. So moving from, going out and doing road loops every weekend, through to going, actually, right, let's go out and do a bikepacking trip, and that's, and then over the time we've done quite a few different things, me and my wife together, been to New Zealand and done trips around Europe, and then a few years ago we cycled to Eurobike from Cambridge, which was a really nice one. So that's the sort of things we try and do more of, and I think that reflects actually experience a lot of riders. But the thing is that the performance of the products and the thing that you buy to do it still needs to link back into that, and the working with people who are really pushing things, either from a racing point of view, going as fast as they can, or putting incredibly big loads on the product, or from a point of view of the beyond roster that we work with, who are people who are covering crossing continents on a product. That's really important, because that's pushing us to develop the very best thing that then whoever goes and takes it out and wants to achieve whatever they want to achieve with it knows that they've got something that's really proven.
Cool. And in preparation for this podcast, I was looking at some videos, some factory visits that people did, like Global Cycling Network and so forth. Yeah. And it seemed like every person in the company is a super dedicated rider, him or herself. You even have some champions in the company working who have championship titles. How important is it for you to hire dedicated riders to the company, or is that necessarily a reason to hire people, or did it just happen naturally?
I think in the early days it definitely probably happened naturally. It was the people that we knew and were interested in coming on and working for us to some extent. But it's not an accident. It's a deliberate thing that we want to have people who are riders. And that doesn't mean you have to be a really dedicated rider, and you certainly don't have to be a good rider. I'm a great example of that, to be in our business and to be making a difference. But what matters is that people are passionate and interested in it in enough numbers across the business, so that we're making the right decisions for the rider when we're running our business. So I think there's two areas. It's really beneficial across the whole business if you've got a good number of people who are passionate and interested in the sport, But I think the areas where it really matters is one, in the kind of leadership of the business. So as we're making, important decisions around what we do, we've actually got people who understand our consumer, understand our riders really, really well. And so as we've got more and more people into the business in different roles, that's been really crucial that we haven't let that slip away for people who really do understand the sport and understand the passion that people have as riders. I think the other place where it really, really matters is in the customer service team. Having people who, when you've got a problem, when you need to sort something out, or when you're asking for advice about what the right thing to do is, right product to buy is, having people who really know inside out about riding. They've used the things themselves. They're excited to use 100%. Them. They've got so much information that they can share with people that, someone who's been riding even for 2 or 3 years as a excited amateur has a wealth of knowledge that someone who you would have to work really hard to teach somebody in a work setting. So it's so useful to have people like that and on top of the knowledge, it's just the care that people have. You can relate to the person on the other end of that email or phone or chat and help them out with their problem, because you know how important it is if you can't get out riding this weekend because your bike's not working. And that's what that really matters.
Yeah, and from a marketing perspective, I think it's very important to talk the same language like our target groups and understand those target groups. And I think that's easier when you're basically in the same boat. And for me, it's just having an instant connection with those people and know what we're talking about. And it makes a huge difference also with, so many codes or hidden codes within cycling, which are hard to understand when you come from the outside. And basically you're on the same level. The understanding is also on a different level, definitely. So that makes a huge difference. And I was also very surprised when I entered the company. I think it's not commonplace that you come into a company where so many people are on bikes and ride, all sorts of bikes in different disciplines. And I think that gives a nice diverse mix of influences within the company, which basically also feed back into our services and products and help us, to shape the brand in a better way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. It feels, how do you say, you can create a greater spirit within the company when you have dedicated riders all working on a product that is how do I say? You need to know your shit in the bike industry in order to sell it authentically, because it is very special. It is very fragmented in all these different genres, so to speak, and so on. I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about the positioning of Hunt. So, lots of these big bike brands out there, like Specialized, they have their own wheel company called Rovo, then, Trek with Bontrager, Giant with Cadex and so forth. And then there's, of course, also the other big players like Mavic, DT Swiss. Where would you see, or maybe Alex can answer this, where would you see the positioning of Hunt in that wide variety of these already existing and strong brands?
So basically, I think we just want to make cycling more approachable. And I think with the wide and broad range of product, we can really serve to a large group of riders. And then, I think with the attractive packages we can offer in terms of price and quality of the product itself, I think I would see we sit more in the middle ground with reaching out also with some sparks towards some high end stuff, which delivers a proof of concept and we try to be the brand which is approachable and has then also a tiering within the product, which allows then also to riders to step up if they see, okay, I want to make some more improvements to my bike, or I want the latest tech for a reasonable price, basically, and just be an interesting option out there. So I think, many of the brands, do a lot to cater to the high-end market, which is nice and fine, but we try to also to break down this technology and make it more accessible for more people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, OEM plays a big role. It's very important for you guys to sell bigger quantities. How? So I would be interested in which brands consider you as an OEM, like an ingredient brand to their brand, where they say, okay, a Hunt wheel set makes my product greater, matches better my brand's identity. Let's say, for instance, Rondo is, the Polish gravel bike and road bike brand. They spec your wheels, and I think they spec them for a reason. Not only because you're affordable, but maybe also it's just a feeling. But I think there's a good brand match between Hunt and Rondo.
Yeah, I think you've kind of picked it up quite well there. I mean, for what people are trying to usually looking for with us is, as you say, it's a good brand match, but it's particularly a good match of like what the product's going to try and do, and then being able to pick out the wheel set that's going to support that and match that. I mean, Rondo's a great example because they had it's not the route, is it? It's the I'm going to have a mind blank, but the aero gravel bike that they did that you could swap out 650B fat tire wheels. This is a few years ago. Probably trends have moved on a little bit since then, or you could put a deep section road wheel with like a 32C tire on it, but it was within an aero road bike package. So it made like an incredibly versatile bike. It was quite popular. It got some really good reviews. I think it was actually like Bike of the Year in one of the UK magazines, so done really well. But it needed a wheel set that was going to support that, and so working with us, we actually managed to do a deal where you could supply the pair of wheels. So you got the 650B wheel and the 700C wheel together, and then you got the full versatility out of that bike. And then we did like a custom color paint work for the 50 mil carbon wheel that we did for them as well. So that was really a really nice way to work together with them. But what we're really looking to do with that is it's not so much volume, because I think we're mostly focused in terms of, from a business point of view, selling to the end consumer. And when we want to work with an OE partner, what we're trying to do is we're trying to work with someone who has a really good understanding of their customers and their riders, and they might fall in a similar place to where ours do. And then by working together, we can create a really good outcome for them, and we can have an outsized impact in terms of getting in front of people's eyeballs around what we're trying to do. So if those bikes get well reviewed, if they get a lot of good publicity, if they get seen in places, and the people who ride those bikes are the people who have a really good understanding of what they want, that really helps us, because out in their local riding groups, they can then advocate for what we're doing and how good our wheels are to their mates and to the other people they ride with. And that's how you can kind of just disperse out from these people who can seed that product into the marketplace. So that's where we look at for OE partnerships. So Rondo are probably on the bigger end of the people we work with, but we work with a lot of smaller people right down through to sort of artisan hand builders, where we can support them with the right product and the right outcome, and then we can also then have a really good relationship with smaller quantities, but we can have a really good relationship in how we then market and grow, because we can give them some platform in terms of our marketing channels, and we can then be partnered with them as well to their marketing channels. So it's really beneficial for both people, and it's good for riders as well, because they're getting a great product on the bike at the end of the day. So that's been an important part really important part for us. And I talked about Mason Cycles earlier on. That was the first partnership we did, and when you've got a really close relationship like that, you can then also get that product development feedback as well, because these are people who are really understanding some of the riding niches that are coming through, and if you can spot that early, you can then create the right wheel sets that then not only to the from an OE point of view are going to do well. They're going to do well with riders as well, because you're meeting a need that hasn't been met by other businesses so far.
Mm-hmm. And so what business is more relevant for you? Is it the OE business, or is it the direct to consumer, or the aftermarket business? Which is more relevant for you guys?
It's mostly the aftermarket side of things. Because I think if you go chasing those really, really big OE deals, you can get big volume, but the problem with that you have is you end up designing your product to meet the needs of the OE buyer and not to meet the needs of the person who's going to ride it at the end. So that's why we've never wanted that to be too big a part of our business. What we want the main part of our business to be is to be making stuff for the aftermarket, for the end consumer, because then that keeps our product development focus on the experience of it as a wheel set, as an end rider, rather than trying to meet the needs of a buyer, which is inevitably going to make compromises.
I was hoping that you say that, because my maybe a little bit bold opinion about this is that beside grips, saddles, and pedals, wheels are basically the very last aftermarket product that is relevant out there, because bikes are already so great when they come out the box these days. But when you, let's say, buy an entry-level gravel bike with a new set of nice wheels, you can upgrade your bike, I don't know, like in a very great way.
Yeah.
So do you agree to that opinion, or how do you see that?
Yeah,
and also my second question was, sorry,
Yeah.
and if you do, my second question would be, how would you like use this in marketing? Do you use this in marketing also, that this is like the easiest and cheapest way to upgrade your bike, or how does that work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, probably Alex might answer the second part better than me, but I think you're absolutely right. It is, in terms of the sort of size and impact on the way the bike is to ride as well, I think it's a really important factor, what you choose for your wheels. I do have to say, a lot of the OEM brands and the house brands have done a really, really good job with a lot of their stuff. And, this is a competitive world we live in, and they're constantly pushing forward some of their capabilities, and we have to push ours to stay ahead of that. But you do have, when you're making that choice about what wheel set to choose, and particularly in combination of what tires you choose as well, because I think that's a really important part of the mix, you have the ability to kind of just tweak and tailor your ride to how you want it to be. So whether that's, the kind of trying to choose a really lightweight option, whether you're trying to choose something with good wind stability, whether you're trying to choose something with comfort, whether you want to choose something that supports a wider tire, those sorts of things, it's harder to make that wheel set for the choice as an OEM product manager to get something that's definitely going to be right. You're not going to get something that's definitely going to be right for all of your consumers. So although on the high-end bikes, and especially the sort of more expensive models, they've got some really good wheel sets on there, it's still difficult for that to necessarily be the right thing for every rider who's going to use that. And that's where there's a good opportunity for us. And then obviously on the sort of lower tiers of the product, they're trying to bring that price down, so they're not able to invest in the same way in the wheel sets that go on those bikes. So they, it is a bit of a shame, but you do end up sort of getting some of those replacement wheels that might end up on the, on the turbo trainer or whatever, that sort of thing. So it's an important thing for people to go through. But yeah, Alex, I don't know if you want to talk through to the kind of how we communicate that out to our riders piece.
Yeah, sure. That's something we are able also to push, because we have such a broad and diverse portfolio, and really to deliver the right information to the riders, why to choose a specific wheel set for that use case they have in mind, so that the riders can really squeeze out the last marginal gain out of their bike. And that's certainly something we try to communicate with, really showing the use cases for those products we had in mind when we developed those wheels, because I think that's the main story. When you look at a bicycle wheel, it's just a black thing, in most cases a black round thing which is rotating, but it's so much more. So we put a lot of effort into going really deep into the details, especially in terms of aerodynamics, delivering all the numbers. We have quite extensive white papers for everybody who is really interested into that stuff and wants to do the deep dive. And we are, I think, one of the companies which is also quite transparent with all the things we investigate, which makes it very interesting to really dive into that if you're interested in aerodynamics for sure, and makes it quite clear what we are doing, and makes us authentic with how we produce our products and how we talk about them.
Mm-hmm. And can you give me an example? What tools you use to communicate to them, and how which tools and how you use them?
Sure, we try to do our homework with I would say the basic stuff, so that as a direct consumer brand which sells online, then sure, our shop is our window basically to the world, and try to put the product out there. So having really nice and compelling information on our PDP pages, and then taking things from there. With just good social media work, which we try to do, feeding into, communicating our technological benefits, as well as, also infusing it with the experience you can get with those wheels. And that is often, transported through our athletes, brand riders, which basically, show what you are capable of doing with those wheels, and basically, also try to inspire people to get out there and think about, okay, how can I improve? What can I do to make my bike better? And that's basically how we approach that.
Mm-hmm. You produce films that you put on your platforms, or do you do a lot of offline marketing, that test events, and do you do these kind of things as well?
Yeah, we try to have a good solid mix out of all those things. Sure, basically for bigger campaigns and launches, we will produce some more complex video material and small little films, which basically show the use case. And this is one big chunk of my work. Basically, claim I like to say is taking an online brand offline to make it more approachable, and that is going to events, connecting with our small retailer network we have, and support them in the best way we can. Have demo rides if people are interested to try and test wheels on events, or Cycling World, best example, just to connect with the riders out there and get first-hand feedback. And so many people are really thankful to have the opportunity to lay their hands on the product and get a touch and feel and say, okay, well, wow, it's even better than I thought. And now I can really do my buying decision and get a set of your wheels. And that's always nice feedback when people respond like this.
Mm-hmm. So when people approach you, do they always only comment on let's say price and product and these kind of things, or are they also like digging the design of the wheels? Are they digging the heritage or something like that? Do you get feedback on these kind of things as well?
Yeah, sure. I think especially in Germany, a lot of riders are quite fond of products coming from the UK, because you've got the perception of these things are designed for really bad conditions. Not to be too rude, Pete, but I think, okay, that is basically what many people think. That makes it quite attractive, I think. And so many smaller UK brands are also quite popular in that sense. And then next, I think, the branding itself is really nice and subtle, which is really something many riders like there. So you've got so many brands which have really big, bold logos all over their wheels, which makes it sometimes quite hard to fit them into your bike in terms of aesthetics. And I think that's something which is really nicely done by our design team, to have a really distinctive design language. You can recognize our wheels as hunt wheels, but still it's quite subtle. It's a bit set back, and you always find nice, fine, small little details on the wheels which surprise you. And I think that makes a nice difference. Okay, one challenge we have with that branding is, when we talk about sports marketing, to have our wheels visibility in racing. But our design team is already working on that. So perhaps we certainly have to do something more on that end to make the wheels more visible in the big bunch. But I think, that's only one part of it. But for the riders out there, I think we are following a really good path with the design language we actually have right now at the moment. And as I can see in many bikes, those wheels look really nice in nearly every bike.
Like Aragon is also doing it with the athletes. They also have very settled designs for the aftermarket, and the riders themselves, they have bigger logos on the saddle. Still doesn't look bad. They still do it in a nice way, but of course it's a little bit more prominent. Maybe you guys can do something similar. Yeah, regarding your strategy, your direct to consumer and aftermarket strategy, has that helped you guys to maneuver through this, let's say, a little bit tricky times, COVID aftermath, aftermath, I would like to say, almost. Has that helped you guys, or did it affect you as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone was unaffected by what we've gone through. I mean, but it definitely helped us a bit. I think the big thing is we were able to respond from an inventory point of view pretty quickly. It's funny with these kind of things because I think it's easy to predict that something will happen. It's hard to predict when it will happen. So I remember during COVID when we had this crazy boom, I was like, clearly this won't last. Like, this is just people are stuck in their houses, they're buying stuff they don't need. And then you go, so we didn't go too deep in terms of buying more stuff at that point. But I was thinking that boom would like kind of crush in like 6 months, maybe. And actually it took like 2 years for that to happen. So yeah, it's easy to have the prediction. It's hard to predict when it will happen. I think, and I think I've got a lot of sympathy with everybody, whatever business they're in, because whatever situation they're in, because I think there's a bit of a narrative that people, the bike industry was greedy. Everyone thought, and there was definitely some narratives around optimism that was not founded in reality about where the bike industry might grow and that this might be some kind of permanent change. But I don't think the overstock problem we had, or the inventory whiplash that we had, I think it was actually mostly driven by people acting rationally. Like, there was a big crunch on supply chain, and like once everybody starts to put those orders in, 2 or 3 years ahead of schedule, you have no choice but to do the same thing yourself, because otherwise you won't have any product to sell. I know there are businesses that went out of business because they didn't order enough and they couldn't get any supply. So there's a bike, as far as I understand anyway, the bike maker Bowman Cycles, that was the issue they had. They couldn't get product. So the idea that, everybody just ordered all this stuff thinking they were going to sell loads and that was a fantasy, I don't think that's really true. I think everybody was acting rationally and like trying to secure a supply of product that if they didn't do that stuff, they wouldn't have had, and they would have gone out of business because they didn't have any product. But we did have the advantage because we do most of our volume, directly through our website. We see our sales coming in through every day. You can respond more quickly. And so when the demand changes, which we probably start to see soften in sort of late summer of 2022, we start to see that demand soften a little bit. You're able to rejig your ordering, push things back and take a few things out, a bit of volume out of the supply chain and get yourself on an even footing. So it probably took us maybe a year to get our inventory right versus some other businesses that are probably still struggling with that. So that definitely helped us, I think, of being mostly D2C volume was an important part of that. But it doesn't mean that you don't have any challenges, because obviously the oversupply in the industry, even if it's not in directly your competitor products, but there's just a huge competition for a limited amount of what people's ability to spend on riding at the moment, which is, people have limited budgets. We've all got a squeeze on from a few years of inflation and then lots of challenges for people spending. That means that combined with an oversupply of inventory, there's a lot of discounting in the business and in the industry. And so even if you don't have an inventory oversupply, you have to you have to be able to compete against all of that stuff. So that does make it a challenge for everybody, even if you're not, massively overstocked from an inventory point of view.
Mm-hmm. And Alex, has it helped you navigating through this time, considering that you are a direct-to-consumer brand, that when you wanted to communicate anything with them, let's say if you want to do like a sales activity or something, that you don't have to go through like a retailer, like deflecting kind of the information, but going like straight to the consumer? Is that something that has helped to, to keep grip in that struggling time?
Yeah, for sure, because we have this very, very close connection to our riders and customers out there. And I think that's one of the main benefits we have as a direct-to-consumer brand, because it's coming unfiltered, basically. We have got unfiltered information, and that is something which allows us then really to react fast and then drive our decisions perhaps into more a direct direction. Sure, the market environment puts also a lot of pressure on us, and we really have to carefully navigate through this with, still staying relevant without harming the brand itself. So I think that's always a fine line and margin we have to walk on, just to be in that big pond in the sea out there, and being competitive, but not eroding our brand values in the end, basically.
Yeah, and then so you guys come both from two different areas. You, Pete, as a founder, you basically, you build the product. You come more from a product side, and then Alex, you come more from building the story around the product side. So I'm just curious. Are you guys, when you guys working so close together, do your two perceptions clash sometimes? Or is that you guys have a very kind of harmonic way to deal with these issues sometimes?
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's probably a much bigger team than certainly the two of us in terms of stuff.
Let's say, okay, we can also say the teams.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the two of you, but we can talk about the teams.
It's interesting because actually, you've gone through. You come from a company where when we had maybe 10 or 15 people in, everybody was involved in a product development to some extent. We try to maintain a bit of that now, but we'd sit down, and when we were talking about a product, everybody got a chance to see all of the prototypes when they came through. Everybody got a chance to get hands on, and we always have had that feedback and input from people. So people who were specialized in marketing and people who were specialized more in the actual product development, originally there was probably not really any separation between that. And then gradually we've got more and more specialists as different people have come into the business. But we actually saw that it was really important to have the marketing and the product development and engineering side together on a really regular basis. So we actually have once a week, everybody, we sort of do all of our product decisions together between the marketing teams and the the engineering teams. So as we bring those projects together, when we decide what we're going to start working on, or if we've got key decisions within the process of creating that new product, actually we just coming together every week and revisiting those. So if we're trying to sort of settle on what the right internal width is going to be for a new gravel wheel, probably a really live example, we will have 3 or 4 people from our marketing teams. We'll have Alex here in Germany. We'll have our guys in the States. We'll have our guys in the UK, and then we'll have our product development and engineering teams all on that call together. And then we work through that process. So actually, it's really important that we're getting that input from both what's technically feasible, what's the desirable technical outcome, and then what our riders are saying that they need. And so some of that's coming from, obviously from the customer service point of view. Some of that's coming from conversations that Alex will be having and our other marketing guys will be having with people in the cycling media who've got a good sight of what riders are thinking. And then also it's often coming through from our pro athletes as well, and our sponsor supported riders, what they're saying that they need the product to be. So getting all of those voices in the room together is really, really helpful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, working with these cross-functional teams is really valuable. And sure, we have heated discussions sometimes about some small details and stuff like that. But I think, as Pete said, it's basically the mix. I think everybody has a say, basically, can influence the direction that I think, delivers then in the end also really well thought product in the end. And we can't also, it's hard sometimes to satisfy all departments, but in most ways we manage to find a common sense and have a product in the end where everybody's proud of. And
it's interesting how these things evolve, because I remember our first gravel race product, or our first aerodynamically developed gravel product. We did a load of work on it, and we made something that was really innovative, because it was really the first time anyone had gone and put a properly super wide external width on a gravel wheel. So you were actually making an aerodynamic improvement even with a wide knobbly tire, because there was a bit of a perception that it didn't make any difference. And we went to wind tunnel and we took some prototypes in there and we went, it makes a really big difference. Like, it may not be the perfect laminar aerodynamic flow that you get on a road wheel, but it still makes a massive difference to have a big chunk of wheel behind your tire filling in that gap, even if that's a knobbly tire that messes up the airflow a bit. So that was a really big innovation, and we created that wheel. But when we did that first one, it was kind of heavy. It wasn't like super heavy, but it was a bit too heavy for what most people wanted. So it was popular to an extent, but we found that actually then we were getting out and we were getting our riders using those in races. They were often choosing to go with one of our more sort of traditional designs that didn't have the super wide external width, because it just wasn't quite light enough and there was just too much climbing in some of the races that they wanted to do. And so then we went back when we did the new version. The voice we were getting from the guys who were dealing with the relationship with all of our supporting athletes was like, it's got to be lighter. They want it to be fast. They like that it's aero, but it can't be 150 grams heavier than the other wheel. And that's when we got through and got the second version done. And then the 42 limitless gravel aero came out and then hit those weight levels, but had still an improved aerodynamic performance over the previous one. And that's the sort of process we're trying to get through, and that's where it really benefits us.
Mm-hmm. And how did the marketing people react to this? To say how are we supposed to sell this, and how are we supposed to communicate this?
I think innovations like these make riders really excited. So I would say that's quite an easy catch to transport that and build that into the communication, because I think that was during that time it was something super new, and we were pretty much at the forefront of pushing that development into that direction. Also, taking aerodynamics off-road. And that's certainly a big topic we are still working on and try to push forward.
It's a big topic right now. Everybody's coming up with aero gravel bikes these days.
Yeah, it is. But I think when you have, something really interesting to tell, which also delivers a value to the riders, I think it's more easily communicated, because you don't have to construct anything about something which isn't there. So basically we've got the data, we can back it up. And we can put claims out there, which we really can stand behind. So I think that makes, my work a lot easier when I really have something where I can rely on.
And that differentiates you from other brands as well.
Sure.
It was in the beginning. When you guys been the first, then first mover advantage. It's also nice to communicate these kind of things, for sure. But of course, also a challenge, because you don't know how it will be perceived within the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So guys, I would like to kind of wrap this up. So I have a few rapid fire questions for you, starting with you, Pete. If you could give lessons that you've learned from founding Hunt Wheels, what would you pass on to an aspirational entrepreneur within the bike industry?
Oh, that's a good question, because I don't know. I tend not to think about these things too much. I think the biggest thing is I don't think I do too much differently. I think just trying to keep moving quickly. It's easy to get kind of nailed down and bogged down in sort of small decisions about how you do things, and actually just getting the big elements of what matters to you as a brand and what matters to you about your products right, and then move forward quickly. And the quicker you move, the quicker you can learn stuff. So don't worry about whether you're making mistakes. Just get things better to do something, learn from it, and improve it, than to sort of obsess too long about getting it absolutely perfect. Whether that's your processes, whether that's your approach to marketing, it's better to get something out there and get learning from it.
Mm-hmm. Good. And Alex, where do you get inspiration for like marketing and, let's say, storytelling ideas within or outside the bike industry? Which brands do you get inspiration from?
Yeah, I try to look into fashion just to see, okay, especially, born out of my own personal interests is, in terms of streetwear, what's going on there, how brands present themselves. That's quite interesting. Then, as we all know, running scene is really evolving and getting bigger. And I think it's quite interesting to see some similarities between, okay, how brands build themselves compared to cycling brands, for example. That's some area I have a close eye on. And then also from my personal background I'm interested in subcultures. And I think subcultures have a huge influence on
which ones? I'm also interested.
Sports, music scene. I used to be, having a couple of hardcore and punk bands back in the past, which heavily influenced me also with how I think about certain things, and having this strong DIY ethos, which is I try to carry into my work as well. And all these small bits and pieces, then having a regular exchange with industry friends, which have also different influences, and then say, okay, did you see this? Did you see that brand? That's basically feeding on a big part of stuff where I just pick bits and pieces and then see, okay, I could put this down on a new campaign for a road bike wheel, for example, or I don't know, why not tell a different story about gravel or gravel racing and give it a different perspective. So I'm always interested in connecting with people which have an interesting story to tell.
Alex gave me some pretty good German music recommendations as well. So I asked him for that last time we were together. And
that's cool.
Yeah, Pete was just wanted to improve his German speaking skills. So yeah.
So I'm not sure if German hip hop is the best way to learn that, but I'm trying.
There's some good German hip hop, but more from the older days. The newer one.
Yeah.
But that's a different story. Thanks, Alex. Pete, describe Hunt's brand personality in 3 words.
I'll do, it's rider focused. So 2 words.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Take that. Alex, fill in the blank for me. The cycling world needs more.
Diversity. I think that's also quite a buzzword which is beaten through these days. But I think every brand should really take a close look on it and really not just say it, but really mean it and build it into the brand strategy, build it into your community work, and really make this one of your core values. I think, and just to the baseline of this should be to bring as many people on bicycles as we can, because I think that is shaping a different world. And there's also something which is really often said, but I think it's still valid.
Yeah, I'll break your quickfire format a little bit, but just to say on that, I mean, there's some things we want to make big progress on, but there's some things I think we can be really proud of. Some of the work that Alex and the rest of the team have done was with our rider roster, supported riders, is 60% women.
Oh, wow.
It's 13% is people from diverse backgrounds, and we've got a target to get that to 20% in the next 2 years. So it's
fantastic.
Still progress we want to make, but I think there's actually some things we should be really, really, really pleased about.
Okay, interesting. So is that part also of the Hunt company ethos then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, effectively, what we want to do is make a positive change in terms of the sport as a whole, in terms of the athletes we support, who we are as an individual company, in terms of how we bring people into the business, how we develop them, and then the wider aspect of ridership and the industry. Now, there's some of those things we can influence more strongly than others, but we want to be making progress in all of those areas and seeing where we can support some of those things. So, another thing we did was, we provided support to a group that provides free bikes to people, refugees in the UK. We've also had for 3 years a partnership with Ride for Racial Justice in Colorado, providing scholarships so that people can get access to races who might otherwise not be able to.
Cool. That's really amazing. I love to hear that. More of that, please.
Yeah.
So the cycling world needs more companies like Hunt. That's what I would fill in then there.
Many thanks.
Cool. Guys, thank you so much. That was really fun to talk to you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, hope to see you soon. I hope to talk to you soon. Latest Eurobike, I reckon.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Great pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That was really, really enjoyable. And hopefully I'll definitely should be able to catch you at Eurobike. And if there's any other follow-ups or anything you need from us, just let us know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I just can only follow Pete's words. Yeah, many thanks for a nice chat and opening up your door. As I said, I really like the format of your podcast and bringing so many different industry people in front of the microphone is really really nice thing. Yeah, I think it's as I said, that feeds also into my part of how I get inspired, basically. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping by July I might be able to have a chance of understanding one of the German ones. But I tried listening to one. It's good, it's good brain soaking because I try and do just listening to German, even if I struggle to follow it, because it's good to help you learn. But I'm hoping by July maybe I can actually understand what it's about.
I will test you. I will ask you about the content of the certain episodes. No, thanks for your feedback, Alex. I appreciate that. That's great. That's very motivating for us to keep doing this. And we also enjoy it a lot. Always learn a lot. I've learned a lot today, and thank you, guys.
Movement. Branding for the bike industry is an ADLIPS branding studio creation. Content direction and production, Mike Magduszewski and Tim Thiel. Sound, music and editing, Niklas Butzke. Artwork, Marius Burgmann. New episodes appear regularly, irregularly on Spotify, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, then please consider following the Movement Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. If you have any questions or comments, use the comment feature below this episode or go to adlips.io and send us a message. Thanks for listening.